I wasn't invited to the family cruise, but they expected me to babysit while they were having fun, so I gave them a taste of karma. Hey Reddit, what's up? I usually just scroll through posts wondering, how could a family do something like that? Well, turns out my own family decided to give me a story worth posting. This has been sitting in my chest like a weight for the past week, and I need some perspective. I'm 30, single, no kids, and now apparently the designated family doormat. Here's the backstory. So, I have that Aunt Linda who's retiring after 40 years as a teacher. She's basically the matriarch of our family and the one who makes sure everyone stays connected. She organizes every holiday dinner, keeps track of all the birthdays, and even makes little care packages for the younger cousins when they start college. She's the glue that holds us all together. Naturally, her retirement is a big deal, and I was excited to celebrate with her. Or at least I was until I found out I'm not actually part of the celebration. It all started last week when I was over at my parents' house for dinner. It was a typical evening. My mom fussing over what to make, my dad half watching TV, and my sister scrolling on her phone. We were chatting about random stuff, and I casually asked if anyone had ideas for a gift for Aunt Linda's retirement. That's when my sister, without even looking up from her phone, said, "Oh, we're giving her a group gift on the cruise." I just paused. What cruise? I thought I misheard her at first. I mean, surely if there was a family trip planned, I'd know about it, right? I laughed nervously and asked her what she was talking about. She looked up, clearly confused that I was confused. You know, the cruise. We've been planning it for months. All the grown-ups in the family are going. Don't tell me you forgot, she said, like I was the one who had somehow missed this massive piece of information. I turned to my mom for clarification, and she gave me this awkward smile, like she didn't want to be the one to break the news. It's a cruise to celebrate your aunt's retirement, she explained, followed by a few days in Hawaii. At that moment, I felt like I was in some kind of weird prank show. Everyone else knew about this elaborate trip, and I was completely in the dark. I asked why I wasn't told, and my mom gave me a nervous little chuckle before saying, "Well, we thought you'd be more help staying back." Staying back? Help with what? My sister chimed in like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "The kids. You're so good with them. And it just made sense for you to stay and babysit while we're gone." Babysit. They wanted me to babysit. Now let me paint the picture here. Between my sister, my cousin, and my other cousin, there are 4 kids under the age of 4, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old, and twins who are just over a year old. And somehow, without even asking me, they had decided that I'd be perfectly fine staying behind to watch all of them. I stared at them in disbelief. Wait, so you're telling me you planned this whole trip, didn't invite me, and just assumed I'd be okay staying behind to babysit? My sister shrugged. Well, yeah, you're always so reliable, and you don't have kids or anything to tie you down. It just made sense. Made sense to who? I looked at my mom, hoping for some kind of explanation that didn't make me feel like a complete afterthought. She gave me a weak smile and said, "We didn't mean to leave you out, honey. We just figured you'd understand. You've always been the responsible one." Responsible. That word felt like a slap in the face. I've always been the one who steps up when someone needs help. Sure, I've watched the kids in emergencies, helped out with school pickups, and even covered for my sister when she had work conflicts. But this was on a whole different level. They didn't even have the decency to ask me. They just decided. My mom tried to smooth things over by saying they'd bring me back a souvenir, like that would somehow make up for being excluded. My sister, meanwhile, acted like I was overreacting. "It's not like you'd enjoy the cruise anyway," she said casually. "You're not a big fan of large crowds, right?" Excuse me? Now, they were deciding what I would and wouldn't enjoy. I sat there, trying to process everything. This wasn't just an oversight. This was deliberate. They had been planning this for months in a private Facebook group, one I wasn't part of. I don't use Facebook, and they all know that. They could have texted, called, or even mentioned it in passing during the dozens of family gatherings we've had. But they didn't. When I pointed out how hurtful it was to be excluded, my mom tried to deflect. "We didn't mean to upset you. It was just practical. Practical for them." I left shortly after, too angry to keep the conversation going. But as the days passed, the anger turned into something deeper. It wasn't just about the trip. It was about what this said about how my family sees me. I'm not a person with my own needs, plans, or desires. I'm just the reliable one, the helper, the one they can count on to sacrifice when it's convenient for them. I replayed the conversation in my head over and over. I thought about the times I dropped everything to help my sister when she was overwhelmed with her toddler, or how I'd rearrange my schedule to help my cousin when her twins were sick. I've always been there for them, and they couldn't even bother to ask me if I'd be okay with this. The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just a one-time thing. This is how they've always treated me. I've been so eager to help and be there for my family that I didn't even notice how often they took advantage of it. But this time I'm done. I don't know how I'm going to handle this moving forward, but one thing's for sure. I'm not staying behind to babysit. Not this time. Tell me guys, what do you think? Have you ever been in that situation before? I'll post an update once I see how things unfold. Update 1. Hi, everyone. I'll keep you updated since this seems to be heading toward a worse road. Alright, so after that disaster of a dinner, I spent a few days simmering in anger. I mean, how do you even wrap your head around something like that? Your entire family plans this huge, once-in-a-lifetime vacation, and not only do they not include you, but they expect you to just roll over and babysit for free. It felt so calculated, so deliberate, like they didn't even see me as part of the family, just the help. I tried to cool off and think of how to address it without blowing up, but I wasn't going to let this slide. So, I texted my sister a couple of days later and said I wanted to go on the cruise too. I figured, okay, if they didn't include me because they assumed I couldn't or wouldn't want to go, maybe I could salvage this by putting myself back in the mix. I even mentioned that I had some time off approved at work and could easily make the arrangements. Her response? Sorry, there's no space left. What? I asked her what she meant, and she explained that the group had already secured their spots months ago and that the cruise was now sold out. She said something about how it was hard enough coordinating everything for the people who RSVP'd and that they couldn't exactly change plans now. I told her I didn't care if I wasn't on the group reservation. I'd book my own ticket. I could find my own accommodations. Hell, I'd even fly separately to Hawaii and meet them there if it came to that. I was trying to make it work, even though I was still hurt about being excluded in the first place. Then she hit me with, well, if you do decide to come, you need to figure out childcare first. We've already planned on you staying back with the kids. There was again the assumption. I reminded her, very calmly I might add, that nobody had asked me to babysit in the first place. I said it wasn't fair to exclude me and then dump childcare on me as if that was my only role in this family. I told her I wanted to celebrate Aunt Linda too, and that it wasn't right to just leave me out of such a big milestone. Her response? A half-baked apology that didn't even sound sincere. She said, it was just an oversight. We didn't mean to hurt you. Then she added, but it's not like we can change anything now. Everything's already set. At this point, I was done playing nice. I told her flat out that I wasn't babysitting and that if they couldn't find someone else, it wasn't my problem. She started getting defensive, saying things like, we all have kids, and you're the only one who doesn't, as if that somehow justified their behavior. I told her that wasn't my fault or my responsibility. I said, you had months to tell me about this trip, and instead of including me, you decided to use me. That's not fair, and I'm not going along with it. After that, she stopped responding. I thought maybe she'd realize how messed up this all was, but no, she just passed the baton to my mom. The next day, my mom called me, and I could already hear the guilt trip in her voice before she even said anything. She started with the classic, I just don't want there to be bad blood in the family. I told her it wasn't about bad blood. It was about respect. I said it wasn't right to exclude me from something so important and then expect me to pick up the slack so everyone else could have fun. She just said, families help each other out. I just about lost it. I said, exactly. Families help each other. But where was the help for me? Where was the consideration for my feelings? You didn't even think to ask me what I wanted. You just assumed I'd be okay with being left out and used. She tried to soften the blow by saying, we didn't mean to make you feel left out. We just thought you'd be more comfortable staying back. Comfortable? Babysitting 4 kids under 4, while everyone else is enjoying a cruise? Sure. Sounds so comfortable. I told her I wasn't doing it, and that was final. She sounded disappointed, like I'd let her down somehow. She even tried to play the we're all counting on you card, but I wasn't budging. After I hung up, I felt a mix of emotions. I was proud of myself for standing my ground, but I also felt this deep sense of betrayal. These are the people who were supposed to love and support me, and they couldn't even be bothered to treat me like an equal. The cherry on top? My cousin texted me later that day, trying to smooth things over. She said she understood why I was upset, but that I should look at the bigger picture and think about how hard it is for parents to balance everything. I didn't even respond. I was too drained to argue anymore. But here's the thing. I still have my time off approved at work, and I'll be damned if I spend it at home watching kids while my family is off living it up. If they thought I was just going to roll over and take this, they've got another thing coming. I started making my own plans. Plans that didn't involve babysitting or catering to anyone else's needs. If my family wants to act like I don't matter, fine. I'll show them what that looks like. What do you guys think? Should I just go and do my own thing? Or is this the wake-up call they needed? Let me know, because honestly, I'm still figuring out if I handled this the right way. Update 2. Hey again. So, after the whole fiasco with my family, I decided I wasn't going to let them ruin my time off. They wanted to act like I didn't exist? Fine. I could play that game too. If they were all busy having the time of their lives on a cruise, I'd make sure I wasn't sitting at home stewing about it. So, I started planning my own trip. At first, it was just to prove a point to myself, but I realized that I actually needed this. I couldn't remember the last time I took a vacation just for me. Every trip I'd been on in the past few years was either for work, a family obligation, or tagging along to help someone else out. This time it was going to be different. I decided to head to the mountains. There's a small cabin rental I'd heard about from a coworker, secluded, cozy, with amazing hiking trails and a hot tub overlooking a valley. It sounded like heaven. I booked it for a week and didn't tell anyone. The day before my family's big cruise departure, I packed up my car, turned my phone on silent, and left. I didn't say goodbye or let anyone know I wouldn't be available. I figured if they couldn't be bothered to include me in their plans, I didn't owe them a status update on mine. The drive up to the cabin was exactly what I needed: rolling hills, winding roads, and the kind of quiet that lets you finally breathe. When I got there, I was blown away by how perfect it was. The cabin was small but charming, with a stone fireplace, big windows, and a deck that overlooked the forest. I spent the first day doing nothing but relaxing. For the first time in what felt like forever, I wasn't worrying about anyone else. No kids to watch, no errands to run, no family drama. Just me. But of course, the peace didn't last long. The morning of the cruise, my phone started blowing up. Even though I'd turned off notifications, I still saw the missed calls and texts piling up when I checked my phone later. First, it was my mom. When can we drop the kids off? Everyone's getting ready to head out. Then my sister. We're on our way to your place with the car seats. Be home, okay? Then my cousin. Are you ignoring us? We're kind of in a rush here. I didn't respond to any of it. As the messages kept coming, they started to get angrier. My sister texted, "This isn't funny. We're all waiting for you to step up." My mom left me a voicemail that was all guilt-trippy, saying things like, "I just don't understand why you do this. We're a family. We rely on each other." Finally, my cousin sent me a long, ranty message about how irresponsible I was being and how selfish it was of me to leave them scrambling at the last minute. She even had the audacity to suggest that I was ruining Aunt Linda's special day by making things harder for everyone. Oh, I was furious. Ruining Aunt Linda's day? The only reason I wasn't there to celebrate her was because they didn't think I was important enough to invite. But now I was the bad guy? Sure. I turned my phone off completely after that. I wasn't going to let them guilt me into feeling bad for sticking up for myself. The rest of the week was exactly what I needed. I hiked trails that overlooked stunning views, soaked in the hot tub under the stars, and spent hours journaling and reflecting on everything. One night, as I sat by the fireplace, I thought about how I'd let my family walk all over me for years. I'd always been the yes person, the one who dropped everything to help. And while I love my family, I realized I'd been sacrificing my own happiness to make their lives easier. But not anymore. By the time I drove back home at the end of the week, I felt like a different person. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. Done with being the fallback option. Done with being the invisible helper. Done with being treated like I didn't matter. Little did I know, the fallout was waiting for me when I got back from the cabin. I was bracing myself for the storm I knew was coming. My family hadn't heard from me in over a week, and judging by the number of missed calls and texts, they were ready to let me have it. I walked into my house and barely had time to put my bags down before my phone started ringing. It was my mom. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but I figured I might as well get it over with. The second I answered, she launched into it. "Where were you? Do you have any idea what you've done?" She was angry and disappointed, which is her favorite way to make me feel like the worst person alive. I stayed calm and said, "I was on a trip, the same way you all were. It didn't go over well." She started going on about how my sister, my cousin, and my aunt had to scramble last minute because I wasn't there for the family. Apparently, when I didn't show up, they had to make emergency arrangements. My sister ended up leaving her 2-year-old with a friend, and my cousin had to cancel her cruise entirely to stay with her twins. And now, they were all furious with me. "They're saying you ruined the trip," my mom said. "Huh, that's exactly what I wanted." I took a deep breath and asked her, "Why is it my fault that they made plans without me? Why is it my responsibility to fix a mess I didn't create?" She tried to cut me off, but I wasn't done. "You didn't invite me, Mom. You didn't even think to tell me about the trip until I stumbled across it by accident. And then, instead of apologizing, you all just assumed I'd stay back and babysit. Do you have any idea how hurtful that was?" She went quiet for a moment before saying, "We thought you'd understand. You've always been the reliable one." Reliable. There it was again. I told her, being reliable doesn't mean I'm your backup plan. I'm part of this family too, or at least I thought I was. But you made it clear that my only role here is to take care of everyone else while you all go off and have fun. That's not okay, and I'm not doing it anymore. She didn't like that at all. She started talking about how families sacrifice for each other and how I was being selfish by refusing to help. I reminded her that families also respect each other, and nobody had respected me when they made these plans without including me. After that, she got defensive and said she didn't want to argue. Typical. When she realized I wasn't backing down, she hung up, but not before throwing an "I hope you're happy with yourself," for good measure. Their nonsense didn't stop there. Later that evening, I got a long, passive-aggressive text from my sister. She accused me of abandoning her and said that I left the family in the lurch when they needed me most. She went on about how hard it was to find someone to watch her daughter last minute and how her friend wasn't even that good with kids. My cousin also chimed in, sending a rant about how I had ruined the whole trip for her because she couldn't find anyone to watch the twins. She even threw in a line about how my aunt was disappointed in me for not being there to celebrate her retirement. That one stung. I love my aunt, and I felt bad that I couldn't be there for her. But I reminded myself that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't even given the chance to be part of the celebration. I didn't respond to either of them. Instead, I sat down and wrote a message to the whole family in the group chat. Yes, the same one I wasn't included in when they were planning the trip. "Hey everyone, I've been hearing a lot of blame being thrown my way for the issues with the trip, so let me set the record straight. First, I wasn't invited on the cruise. Nobody told me about it until I found out by accident. That alone was hurtful. But then I was expected to babysit without even being asked. Second, I'm not responsible for fixing problems that came from your own assumptions. If you needed my help, you should have asked. I'm part of this family, not your free nanny. Lastly, I need to set some boundaries. From now on, if anyone needs my help, they need to ask me directly, and if I say no, that's the end of it. I won't be guilt-tripped or manipulated into doing things I don't agree to. I love this family, but I also deserve to be treated with respect." I sent it and put my phone down. I didn't even care what the fallout would be. For once, I wasn't bending over backward to please everyone else. I thought my firm message would end the chaos and set clear boundaries. Instead, it was like I had thrown a grenade into the family group chat. The fallout started immediately. By the next day, my phone was flooded with calls, texts, and guilt-tripping voicemails. It wasn't just about them being upset. I could deal with that. No, this was entitlement on a level I didn't know existed. The first call I picked up was from my cousin, the one with the twins. Her tone was sharp and accusatory from the start. I just don't understand how you could do this to us, she began, skipping any pretense of politeness. I let out a slow breath. Do what, exactly? I asked, though I already knew where this was going. You left us scrambling, she snapped. We thought you'd be home to take care of the kids. And when you weren't, we had no choice but to cancel everything. Do you realize how much money we lost? That's unfortunate, I said calmly, but it's not my responsibility. You should have arranged childcare in advance if you knew it would be an issue. She gasped, like I had just insulted her directly. You're being completely unreasonable. This isn't how families treat each other. Families help. Helping requires someone asking for help, I said, my voice steady but firm. No one discussed this with me. No one even mentioned the trip to me. You just assumed I'd be okay with it, and that's not fair. She didn't like that answer. It was an accident that no one told you, she argued, her voice dripping with exasperation. We thought you'd be fine watching the kids. You've done it before, and I've done it before when I was asked and agreed to it, I countered. This time no one asked. You can't just make plans for me and expect me to be okay with it. Then she hit me with something that left me momentarily speechless. You know, we could have called the police for child abandonment. You were supposed to be home to care for them. It took me a second to process what she had just said. What? I asked, genuinely baffled. You left us in a bind, she pressed on. You were the one we were counting on. It's neglectful to just leave when the kids were supposed to be with you. I couldn't help it. I laughed. You can't be serious, I said. You can't report me to the police for not agreeing to a responsibility I was never asked to take on. That's ridiculous. You don't get to assume things and then punish me when your assumption is wrong. She was silent for a moment, and I took the opportunity to keep going. My house isn't even child-proofed, I said, and to be honest, I don't particularly enjoy spending time with kids. I'm not equipped for this, and it's not something I want to do. She exploded at that. Wow. So now you're just admitting you don't care about your family? Is that it? You think you're too good to help out? No, I said, boiling inside. I think I'm allowed to have my own life and my own plans. Just because I've helped in the past doesn't mean I'm obligated to sacrifice my time and energy whenever you feel like it. She hung up on me after that. But it didn't end there. My sister jumped in next, sending a furious string of texts accusing me of destroying the family dynamic and making Aunt Linda's retirement about me. She ranted about how selfish I was being and how I was letting everyone down. I didn't even bother replying to her. Then my mom called. Unlike my cousin, she wasn't angry, she was disappointed, which is somehow worse. Honey, she began, we're all just so hurt by what's happened. This isn't like you. I raised you to be better than this. Mom, I interrupted. I'm not doing this. If you're calling to guilt me, save it. I'm not trying to guilt you, she insisted, though her tone said otherwise. I'm just saying you've really upset your sister and cousin. They were counting on you, and they should have asked me if I was available, I said. They didn't. They assumed. That's not my problem. She sighed heavily. This isn't how families are supposed to work. We're supposed to help each other. Helping requires respect, I said firmly. No one respected me enough to include me in the trip. No one respected me enough to ask if I could help. They just made plans and expected me to fall in line. That's not helping. That's being used. She didn't know how to respond to that. Instead, she switched tactics. Aunt Linda is so upset that this drama has overshadowed her celebration. Do you even care about how this is affecting her? I felt my patience snap. If you cared so much about Aunt Linda's celebration, maybe you shouldn't have excluded someone who wanted to celebrate her too. This isn't my fault, Mom. Stop trying to make it my responsibility to fix your mistakes. She didn't say much after that, just another heavy sigh before muttering, I hope you're happy with yourself, and hanging up. The only bright spot in all of this was Aunt Linda herself. She called me later that evening. I just wanted to check in on you, she said. I heard about the drama, and I wanted to say I'm sorry. I asked, genuinely surprised. For what? For how the family has treated you, she said. I didn't realize you hadn't been included in the trip. If I'd known, I would have insisted you come. I hate that this has become such a mess. Her words meant more to me than I could say. I thanked her, and for the first time in days, I felt a little lighter. As for the rest of my family, I've been sitting here, staring at my phone, wondering if I should just turn it off and walk away from all of it. Part of me thinks I should let them know exactly how I feel. Lay it all out so there's no confusion. But the other part of me is just so tired. Tired of the arguments, the guilt trips, the feeling that nothing I say will ever make a difference. Maybe it's time to just stop trying and let them figure things out without me. I don't know. What would you guys do? Let me know in the comments, and I'll keep you updated. Final update. Hey everyone, thanks for all your support. I came with a final update just to let you know my final decision. So, after the chaos of the past few days, it became painfully clear that my family wasn't going to change. No amount of explaining or boundary setting would make them see me as anything other than the reliable one, the person they could lean on without ever considering my feelings or needs. I had hoped things might calm down after Aunt Linda's kind words and my firm message in the group chat, but that wasn't the case. My sister's vague Facebook posts about toxic family members continued, with comments like, some people forget what loyalty means, flooding in from her friends. My cousin was still sending passive-aggressive texts, though I stopped reading them after the first couple. Even my mom, who had shown a flicker of self-awareness during our last conversation, was back to guilt-tripping me every chance she got. It was exhausting. I found myself lying awake at night, replaying every argument, every accusation, and every moment when they tried to make me feel small. I kept asking myself, was this worth it? Can I keep putting up with this kind of treatment? The answer was no. For years, I had bent over backward to be the good daughter, the helpful sister, the reliable cousin. But what had that gotten me? Exclusion, disrespect, and entitlement. I realized I couldn't keep pouring myself into people who only saw me as a convenience. It was time to cut ties. So I decided to call my mom. She was the hardest to confront because, despite everything, I did still love her. But love wasn't enough to justify the way she treated me. When I called her, she answered on the first ring. "Honey," she said, her voice already dripping with relief. "I'm so glad you called. Let's put all this behind us. Okay? I don't want to fight anymore." "This isn't a fight, Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. "This is me telling you that I need space." "A lot of it." "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means I can't keep doing this," I said. "I love you, but I can't be part of a family that doesn't respect me. Every time I try to stand up for myself, I'm met with guilt-tripping, accusations, and all this. I deserve better than that." Her voice broke. "So what? You're just going to walk away from me? From your sister? From everyone? If that's what it takes to protect my peace, yes," I said. "You can't mean that," she said, sounding desperate now. "Families fight. That's what we do. But we work through it. You don't just cut people off." "I've been working through it for years," I said, "and all it's done is hurt me. I'm done." She cried and begged, but I didn't waver. Eventually, she realized I wasn't going to budge and hung up on me. For my sister and cousin, I simply blocked them and didn't answer their calls. I half expected an angry message from my mom or some other family member, but to my surprise, it was quiet. Maybe they finally got the hint. For the first few days, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Cutting ties with my family wasn't easy. These were people I had grown up with, celebrated holidays with, and leaned on during tough times. But at the same time, I realized most of those memories were one-sided. I had given so much of myself to them, but they had rarely given anything back.